What do you do when everything in your business seems to go wrong all at once? Most entrepreneurs panic and some even quit. But the ones who thrive are the ones who can face big problems with resilience and optimism. That's why I'm so excited about today's conversation with my friend, Brad Bizjack. Brad and I met in a mastermind back in 2022. And since then, I have been so inspired by the way he leads with positivity, grit, and a deep belief that life is always happening for us and not to us. Brad is a personal development expert and mindset strategist who has worked with more than 75,000 people around the world to help them rewire their thinking and create lasting success in all areas of their life. But what I love about Brad is that he doesn't just teach this stuff, he is living it. From starting out $92,000 in debt to rebuilding after massive setbacks in his own multi-million dollar business, he knows exactly what it takes to keep moving forward, especially when times get tough. In this episode, Brad and I dig into why mindset is so much more than just staying positive, how your relationship with problems is actually what determines your success as an entrepreneur, and what it actually looks like to build resilience in a year like 2025. If you've been feeling weighed down by challenges in your business, I promise this conversation will leave you feeling lighter, stronger, and ready to tackle whatever comes next. Let's get into it. I am so excited to have with me, I think, back on the show. It's been a few years, but back on the show, Brad Bizjack. Welcome to the rebranded Nurse CEO podcast, Brad.
I'm super pumped to be here, Laura. Thank you so much for having me back.
Yeah. And Brad and I were talking a little bit before we hit record about what we want to hopefully cover today. I know conversations can squirrel off into lots of different directions, but the thing that I wanted to have Brad come on to talk about today is something that I have personally experienced for sure in the last couple of years. I know a lot of my clients, even the very successful ones, have had this experience in the last year and a half, 2 years, where either stuff has been harder than it's been when they started their business originally, or they've had some really serious challenges that have happened in their business where if they didn't have the mental fortitude to get through that, then that might have been the end of their business. So I know that's like super positive and we're all talking about positive mindset. But the reason I love Brad's work is because he's one of these people who I'm like, I don't know how you're always so happy, but even when ish is hitting the fan. It seems like you're so happy about stuff. And so I do feel like just being able to handle very serious business challenges with grace is something that I know all of us can benefit from. So before we get into that, Brad, can you tell us a little snippet? I know you have probably a lot of stories you could tell, but a snippet as to how did you even get into this and why should people believe you when it comes to
Yeah.
talking about mindset?
I started off similar place to a lot of people, right? I was deeply in debt. I wanted so badly to change my financial circumstances. But if I'm being totally honest, what I really wanted was to be the breaking point of mediocrity in my family history. Like I wanted to outrun my past. And I found online business and I was like, this is the key. This is the ticket to freedom. But I faced this really significant challenge that I'm sure a lot of listeners can experience can relate to, and that is no matter what I tried, it just didn't work. Right? I was doing all the right things, listening to the podcast, reading the books, and it wasn't working for me. And I would start to get in my head because it was working for everyone else. And I would take their success to mean my failure. And I would find myself on the couch, binge watching Friends reruns, feeling sorry for myself, downing a plate of microwave nachos, and just getting pissed off at myself that I was in these states. And my mentor told me, you need a mindset coach because what you're doing right now isn't working. And I was like, bro, I'm $92,000 in debt. I can't afford a mindset coach. But if nothing changes, nothing changes, right? So I remember hiring that mindset coach, maxing out my last credit card. And on our very first call, she said something that transformed my entire life. I was telling her all the same things, right? I'm reading the books, listening to the podcasts, I'm trying all the things. Why isn't it working for me and it's working for everyone else? And she said, Brad, you're so attached to success that you're missing the whole point. Like you're under the impression that you shouldn't be where you are right now. Business success and money isn't going to make you happier. It's rewiring your mind for happiness that will lead you to success. And that thought sent me on this path of all of these different tools and trainings and things that really helped me shift my belief system, what was going on subconsciously. behind the scenes that I didn't even realize was there. And from what I learned there, I started applying it not only to my own business, I started a new business teaching people this because it helped me so much. And now it's, you know, 8 years later and 75,000 people whose lives have been transformed from all over the world. And I've gotten my 10,000 hours with it and helped quite a bit of people. And it's changed our lives dramatically because I think a lot of people think they just need to keep taking more action without recognizing that there are forces that they can't see at play that we need to alter, change, or tweak that's going to make them successful. So now I'm on a mission to help people break cycles of mediocrity and create the success they really want to.
I love it. And I I feel like that story is so indicative of where a lot of people kind of take the other direction where it's like they're struggling, they're, doing all the things, it's not working for them, they see it working for other people and they just decide, I guess this isn't for me and they quit. Versus saying, no, this has to be some solvable, right? In some way, shape, or form. And having that person tell you to go work with a mindset coach when logically it was like, no, I do not have money for this.
Yeah.
I think those kind of decisions are the ones that actually really, as you explained, can completely transform your future. And now here you are, as you said. So, one of the complaints I've seen, I don't think this is so much the people I work with, but when I occasionally dabble in like Reddit threads and stuff, which I honestly should probably stop doing, there's a lot of
Same.
this, there's a lot of this perspective about mindset work in general or mindset coaches where people really think it's like it's a grift, right? They're like,
Mhm.
this is BS, this is spiritual bypassing, this is, you can't just like slap a happy face on and just pretend everything's fine. And, so there's a lot of, ironically, a lot of negativity
Mhm.
around mindset as just a practice or something to be worked on or something to even hire a coach with.
Yeah.
So what would be your response to someone who thinks this whole mindset thing is just like now I okay, to back up for a second, I will say this is coming from the context of having worked with clients who have had very bad experiences working with coaches where they were basically gaslit after
Yeah.
asking questions where it was like, "Hey, I'm, struggling with this. I'm asking a question about something," and the coach is like, "Fix your mindset," and that's all they got, right? So I wanna acknowledge that actually there are a lot of really terrible mindset, quote unquote, coaches out there. And I know that doesn't mean that all mindset coaching is the same, right? So can you share what you would tell somebody who's maybe had a bad experience or felt like mindset was almost like weaponized against them in a business program that they've worked in?
Yeah, I definitely want to provide some hope and optimism about it. And we'll talk exactly about that, which is optimism. But most people would be right in the sense that most people that claim to be mindset coaches, like there is a problem going on where it's let's put a smiley face on the butt of a pig. And, that's kind of what it feels like. It's this reframing and it's a lot of distraction. And if I'm being fully transparent, when I started my business years ago, before I had all these tools in my tool belt, that's all I knew how to do. Right. And so a lot of times people will claim to be life coaches when they haven't experienced much of life. Right. And and so it kind of gets conflicting. Like, where do we take advice from? And so I want to make one thing abundantly clear. Mindset, that word gets thrown around so much in this space. Mindset is not be positive. That is not what that means. Because when you see someone that tells you to just think about it positively, what they're telling you to do is to avoid a problem. It's pretend the problem doesn't exist. It's going to your garden and closing your eyes and meditating, going, there are no weeds here, and expecting the weeds to disappear. It doesn't work like that. It requires true optimism to face what you're dealing with. Now, true optimism and positivity are very different things. Blind positivity is just as toxic as pessimism because it's pretending a problem doesn't exist. Pessimism just means you're gutless and afraid to get hurt again. But optimism is okay, this is a significant challenge. This is what I'm feeling. I'm feeling overwhelmed, anxious, whatever it is. Okay, I'm going to use some great tools to help me through this state because I believe in my ability to figure it out. Right? So it's coming face to face with what you experience. Now, I want to give a definition of what really needs to be worked on from a mindset perspective, and this is what will provide hope. right? If you are ever in a situation with a mindset coach and they're talking about just being positive, run. True mindset work is about identifying the toxic beliefs, the thought processes, the limiting emotional patterns, the limiting identities, the energetic state that you tend to live in consistently, and being a mirror for the pieces of your heart that aren't healed yet and calling those out to you. And so when you work with a coach, you'll be able to see different patterns that are at play that you didn't even know were there. And so that's one of the greatest keys to all of this. Great coaching really helps someone take a look inside and see what's really going on at the root level. Most people try to change the fruit, right? Which is going to an apple tree and taping a pear on there saying it's a pear tree. That's not how it works. You have to dig up the apple tree and plant a pear tree if you want it to work. But all this being said, when you actually work on the things that yield results, which is the subconscious programming going on behind the scenes, that's when you change everything about the potential you tap into. And when you change the potential you tap into, you change the actions that you would otherwise take. And when you elevate those actions to a more empowered place, that leads to different results, better results. And when you get better results, that reinforces the newly upgraded programming that you have going on, and the cycle repeats itself. So there is hope, absolutely. But I would actually say that most mindset coaches are just telling people to be positive. And that's why I don't like the word mindset. I like the word working on your subconscious, rewiring your mind for success. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Yeah.
So when somebody's experiencing something negative or a negative experience, like obviously, an exact circumstance, you could interpret things differently. So the person is interpreting it as this is a problem, this is hard, this sucks, however they're responding to it. What's the difference between somebody who is not coming from a place of optimism with that experience versus somebody who is, and they're not, neither of them are just like, duct taping the smile on their face and saying, "No, this is fine, everything's fine." So the person's having the negative experience, and again, it's kind of those two paths. One path is pessimism and one path is optimism. What might that look like in like very specific, almost like an example for our coaches, our practitioners out there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think to start, your success is completely and directly proportional to the quality of your relationship with problems. And I say this because if you're in business and you're coaching someone, that means you're in the business of solving problems, right? But here's what most people don't understand. The very act of solving a problem literally creates another one. So the better at business you get, the better at coaching you get, the more problems you actually create. And so if something tough happens, that actually just makes life normal. I subscribe to the belief that life is always happening for you and not to you, right? So there's a gift life is trying to give you. Most people don't see it that way, but life's lessons will get louder and louder and louder until you pay attention. I'll go into an example in just a moment, but life's lessons will get louder and louder and louder until you pay attention. And it typically starts off as like a little feather dusting, right? A little, hey, you should pay attention to this. But we're so busy, we have too much going on, we have too big of a client load. Here's a good example. We'll go actually right into the examples. Let's say that your kid is saying, "Mommy, mommy, play with me, play with me, play with me," right? You're getting the feather dusting. I should probably play with my kid, but my client load's too heavy. I have way too much going on. I can't right now. I can't play right now. I have to take this call, right? And life being rigged in your favor really wants to teach you this lesson. So it takes a pen and a piece of paper and it writes you this lesson on a piece of paper and it wraps that note around a brick and it throws that brick through your living room window and glass shatters everywhere. This is mommy or daddy missed the school play, right? This is oh my gosh, I forgot that this was an important date on the calendar. I missed the doctor's appointment. Oh, I can't make it, right? I can't schedule that family trip, whatever it is. It's these things where the kid is drawing you pictures of you at school and it's a picture of you on the phone, right? It's that brick that just is sitting there on and you don't see the lesson because you're looking at all the things that haven't happened. I haven't grown the business yet. It's not where I want to be at. I should be further along. I should be happy. I should be there already. And then what happens is life keeps throwing these bricks, and there's glass in your living room. There's bricks stacked up in the living room, and you don't have any more windows. And you're looking around at the neighbors' houses, and all their windows are intact. Easier for them. They don't understand my situation. Oh, it's easy for them to spend time with their kids. Easy for them. I don't have a business that's grown yet. But you're not seeing the lessons right there. And so what life rigged in your favor wants to do is get you to learn this lesson. So it will write this lesson on the front of a truck, and it will honk its horn right as it runs you over, and whack. You wake up in the hospital a couple weeks later, and you have a choice. Learn the lesson or keep the same programming going over and over and over again. And this is the really painful stuff. This is the kid wanting nothing to do with you. This is the divorce. This is those type of things. And I use an example of a personal life because I think it's just a more, just speaks to more groups of people. But that would be an example of life lessons getting louder and louder. I'll share one in my life. It started off as, hey, Brad, you should probably heal this relationship with your mom. I was like, it was so negative. I don't want to deal with that right now. I have a business to grow, all this stuff. And then it turned into, well, mom's not showing up at the holidays. That's the brick, right? I'm getting kicked out on some of the holidays. Mom's not calling. What's going on? And then it turns into the truck years later, which is I get a phone call that I'm the reason she wants to commit suicide. And that was the truck that told me, hey, I need to do some work on this. And the key is to catch it before it gets to become a brick or a truck. And we're so caught up in the outcome that we think we should have that we're not seeing the lessons life is giving us everywhere. So it's not a matter of if problems are going to exist. They're absolutely going to exist. But whatever you avoid controls you. So if you're avoiding something and you know what you're avoiding right now, whatever you are avoiding, that is owning your life. And until you take a look at that, and it's not easy, I get it, to take a look at it because it's probably a pretty big problem. But like I said, to the degree in which you are willing to have a beautiful relationship with problems is the degree in which you're willing to be successful, right? So that's more of a negative example of when life throws you curveballs. But like I said, life will always throw you curveballs. I'll give you one more example of my life on the flip side. After I had these tools, after I've been using these for a while, because I think a lot of times people think that seasons in their life when it all seems to go wrong all at the same time, it shouldn't be like that for them, or it's different for them or harder for them. And that's total BS. That's not true. That is actually a very normal occurrence on the path of personal growth. It's called the death of your ego, meaning your values have shifted. And what kept you safe up until this point is no longer the thing that's going to keep you safe. And so you need to grow, you need to let go, you need to shed those structures that kept you in this comfort zone. And so this is probably about a year and a half ago now. We had been on this upward trajectory in business, right? It took about 7 years to get my business off the ground. But once I figured out how to do it, it started growing and growing and growing for like 4 years straight. It was just up, right? And we were doing about 2.5 million sales a year. And it was awesome. Things were flying high. The margins to protect that was great. And then in the beginning of 2024, it all seemed to go wrong all at the same time. And what do I mean by that? Well, there was this, call it a conflict of values within the team, where we have employees threatening to quit at live events in front of clients. So I have to let these employees go. Then we have to backfill that role and take care of the actual responsibilities all in real time while facilitating all of this. Now, keep in mind, our business was really, really, really big, right? We had courses and live events and retreats and all this different stuff. Then we found out that one of our employees failed to collect $250,000 of revenue, uncollectible. That same week, what we had budgeted with the vendor for a live event where we had 300 people from all over the world coming in to see me speak and do this conference, the event came back 5x what was budgeted, and the vendor wasn't budging on anything, and we had these big disconnect with the vendor, so we had to cancel the event. We had to refund 300 tickets to this event, and then to basically make things right to all these people, I gave a month of daily coaching on the back end of that, and then from that cancellation, That's about $600,000 in revenue that we just let go of because the event is a sales mechanism for a $10,000 offer, right? So that's gone. Then at the exact same time, about a week later, we had a really big launch that we were projecting to do about $1 million in sales. And we did not partner with amazing affiliates for this launch. We were still optimistic and super excited about it. And it did about $200,000 in sales. All of that happened within a matter of 2 weeks.
I'm like, my jaw is like on the floor. I'm like, oh my gosh, Brad.
So now I'm making up for all of this with time for money projects. I'm taking my focus away from the vision, the possibility, and the networking, all those things. I'm playing damage control in all these areas. I'm delivering daily coaching. I'm working more than I've ever worked before. And it just seems like things are fine and dandy. Well, I'm like, okay, I just need to get through this until the next launch. Well, the next launch, this is a couple months later, the next launch does really, really well. Right? It did like $750,000 in sales. And I go to my CFO and I'm like, how we doing? Are we good now? She's like, yeah, you're going to run out of cash in about 6 months. And I was like, what? Like, how does that make sense? And so from there, we went through this period where we let go of so many of our teammates. And it was this, my whole reason for telling you all of this is because there was a 2-week period of intensity, followed by a ton of just over focus on work, followed by, oh my gosh, I thought we were past this. And then there's the extra kick in the butt that I have to let go of these amazing people that I love and care about. All of that happened in a span of a couple of months. And so my psychology through that period of time, there were moments where I was overwhelmed. Right? There are moments when I felt anxiety or worry, and that is normal because uncomfortable emotions are a good thing. They are a call to action for your life. And the more you resist them, the more they show up. Right? And so I would feel them. I'd experience them just like any human being would. And with the belief that life is happening for me, not to me. With what can I learn from this? How can I grow from this? What is this giving me that I can't see right now? That turned into one of the most beautiful gifts our business has ever had. To where now it's a year later, we're in the healthiest position we've ever been in. I am by far the lightest I have ever been, regardless of what's going on in the world, because it wasn't this problem should not happen. It's this happened, I feel that, and here's what I'm going to do about it. So all I'm trying to say is problems are always going to be there. How do you relate to problems? That's what's going to make the biggest difference in your life.
I'm like, oh my gosh, that was a lot of stuff happening in a very short period of time. And I do think that for most people, that kind of stuff would be like the end of their business.
Yeah, I mean, well, how you think when you're down determines if or how long it'll be until you get back up.
Hmm.
You know, if that happens, for a lot of people it would be because they're focused more on the problem than the solution, right? They're focused more on what's wrong, what shouldn't be there instead of what they're grateful for and what they're going to do about it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, and I'm always like hesitant because I'm like, is this me like not having the best mindset? But I'm really curious with that second round of like, dang, this is not getting fixed the way I was hoping it would be fixed. What was like the big aha moment or lesson that was able to help you turn everything around? Because I feel like with letting people go and all of that, I mean, I can totally understand that's really hard if you have somebody, especially you really like them. It's not even like you don't like them. You want to keep them on your team. So what if you were gonna kind of like package the big learning that had to happen? Unless you're still in it and you're like, hmm.
Um, I can be, I'll be transparent here about what it was. I recognize that I was leading my business the way that my parents led their marriage. And it was this is what exactly what we're talking about with like mindset stuff we don't realize is going on, right? Subconscious patterns, past traumas, past pains, they come back and they will eat you alive if you do not solve them and you don't work on them. So when I was growing up, my dad my superhero, right? Like dad was like the most amazing guy in the world. And he was very conflict avoidant, right? Wouldn't face conflict, wouldn't deal with any conflict, and was very pleasing. Wanted everyone to be happy, right? Didn't want to ruffle any feathers. Well, the lesson that I really learned with this is that I was running my business that way because I wanted to be like my hero, right? I was just appeasing everyone. I was way overpaying for roles that were within my company. I was just wanting to provide benefits and do all this stuff. And there was a gross overspending in the business, some of which I didn't even know was happening because I was just like, I just want to make them happy. Just want to make everybody happy. If they're happy, they'll stay. And it kicked me in the butt. And it helped me recognize how to be a true leader because from doing that and being passive, what ended up happening was the company just it didn't even feel like mine anymore. It kind of was, and this is a whole different topic for maybe a different day, but the culture was different. It was just, it wasn't a reflection of me. And that was kind of the root of all of it. That and look at your P&L. Yeah, so that was a big one. And there were so many lessons along the way. And keep in mind, to everyone listening to this, let's say, I know it kind of, you might be looking at this story and being like, okay, well, that's a problem that's for a more developed, more advanced business. And while that may be true, and you might have a business the same size, I'm not saying either way, this type of stuff is all relative and will happen at every single level. One example that may be a little bit more relatable is I didn't realize that not letting go of some beliefs that were given to me from childhood were stopping me from my business growing, right? If you ask yourself, whose love did you crave as a child? Not whose love did you get, whose love did you crave, mom or dad? And you find out who it is. For me, it was mom. And you ask the question, who did you need to be to receive love from that person? For me, the answer was submissive and perfect. I need to be submissive and perfect. That's how I receive love. Well, how does that show up in a business? When it comes to putting your voice out there, let's say you have a mission and a purpose, and I want to put my voice out there, but I have to make sure and get validation and approval before I do. I have to make sure everything is right before I even start. So what am I going to do? I'm going to hold back. And so I'll start to overstudy. I'll look at all of the different books, listen to all the different podcasts to make sure I'm doing it right, but never go all in. And I was playing life not to lose instead of playing to win. And so it wasn't until I healed that belief and that relationship and that past pain where that unlocked. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, cool. I'll just share about this and serve people. So that's a example more towards the beginning of business. But my point with that is to illustrate that it will happen at every level. There will be new problems, and the very act of solving them creates bigger ones, and how you show up to each of them will determine what your ceiling is.
Mhm. Dang, this is it definitely not the direction I expected, but I'm very happy we're talking about it because I do think it's so easy for these mindset conversations to just be very surface level and very much like, look at me, I'm so successful and here's how my mindset
Yeah.
is. So yeah, I mean, it's funny because I work with a large variety of income levels as far as my clients are concerned, and it is really interesting to me the people who do get to that like multi six, half a million dollar a year kind of revenue, which for a health expert is very high for them, like that is
Crushing it.
something where their industry is paying like 60K for their job and they're doing like 300K, which is so exciting. And I think people assume that the people that are doing that much money are just so chill all the time and everything's great and everything's working and everything they try is just successful. And I do find that for a lot of the people I work with at that level, the biggest thing we end up working on is them being able to make decisions without needing validation. And that's something where I have to really have some really strong boundaries in a loving way to people because I'm like, listen, I am not the decider of your business. Like,
Yep.
I will give you some thoughts, I will share, my experience, but at the end of the day, you need to be able to make a decision here. And I do find that the people that we work with, they are that, like, people pleasing, perfectionist, I wanna make everyone happy type of person, and either it creates the problem that you were just mentioning where it's like they won't put anything out there because they don't feel like it's safe to share their thoughts because God forbid you get an angry comment, and there's plenty of those no matter what you say. So you're really never going to avoid it. So there's like the beginner problem of I'm so afraid to make somebody upset that I won't even put myself out there. And then there's the more advanced problem I see, which is the person who is making money, but they're basically like pumping the emergency brake really hard in their business because, oh, well, if we get too many clients in this program, I can't serve them all at the level I want to. And then people are going to be upset. Or, oh, if I change the price, like people are going to be upset because it's too expensive now. And so a lot of the decisions they make in their business are around, like you said, trying to avoid making people upset versus actually just making business decisions that help the business and help the client. And helping the client doesn't always mean doing what they want you to do with exactly, the options like the price and the group size and all of that. So I do think that's a really important thing that I hope all of you are taking notes about because that's, as Brad said, that's not like, oh, you just started developing that belief because you started a business. Like you probably developed that belief when you were 3.
Mhm.
So
100%.
I want to take a quick break here because I want to make sure that you know about something that could make a huge difference in the trajectory of your business right now. From October 20th through the 24th, my friend Brad is hosting his free Success Accelerator Challenge. It's a 5-day live training that's all about helping you rewire your mind for success so you can finally stop guessing yourself and start moving forward with clarity and confidence. You'll walk away with a clear vision for what you really want in your business and your life, the ability to spot and break through limiting beliefs that have been holding you back, and the tools to create consistency and momentum without all the stress and self doubt. I've been so inspired by Brad since meeting him in a mastermind in 2022. Watching how he handles challenges with resilience and optimism has been such a game changer for me, and I know that his tools are going to help you too. The challenge is totally free, but it only happens a couple times a year. So go to the link in the show notes to grab your spot and join us on October 20th through the 24th. I know you'll be blown away by what you discover about how to be more successful through changing your mindset. So, for people who are experiencing a lot of this like hesitation, nervousness, they want to do something, whether it's, little or big in their business. Like you said, you had some really big stuff that kind of collapsed at the beginning of last year that you had set out to do. Where can they start to uncover some of the reasons for this or some of like what is the brick that they need to like read the note on? Because I do think sometimes people get so and you said this, people get so focused on the problem and the shattered glass of the symptom that they actually don't even know, well, what's the note that I'm supposed to be reading in this
Yeah.
exact moment.
There's a lot of different directions we can go with this. And you're asking a really beautiful question about where can people start to look what's going on behind the scenes because this is the area of psychology and how your mind is wired that most people don't know to look at. So we'll use the example of you mentioned perfection and people pleasing as examples. Well, whenever there's a symptom like that, right? So if I ask you, what is the chokehold on your business right now? Everyone will have some sort of answer of what that is. And if you say, well, I'm the chokehold, that just means that the chokehold is you're blaming yourself, which is something psychological we can work through. But you'll probably know what the chokehold is. And so for these, let's say people pleasing and perfection as an example. Well, people pleasing, I look a level deeper and ask, well, what's actually driving this person? Someone that is people pleasing is likely deeply craving the feeling and sensation of significance in their life. They probably don't feel very important and want to. And so they want to make sure that what they share is acceptable, will serve people, that it's the right thing. At the same time, they also want to make sure that it's safe to share, that they'll be able to avoid pain and gain pleasure by doing whatever action it is. And so they'll look for validation to see, how do I compare? Am I enough if I do this? And at the same time, is this a safe choice for me to do? Because certainty and significance are driving that person. At the same time, someone that is living in perfection consistently, where they're either never really getting started because they don't know how it's going to go, or the person that is tiptoeing around the edges of their goal and playing not to lose instead of playing to win, or the person that's doing the actions and it still doesn't feel like it's ever enough. All of those are a sign that you're living in perfection. Perfection just means, number one, you are overvaluing certainty in your life. And number two, that you are tying your worth to an outcome. But no amount of success, achievement, whatever it is, will ever make you more worthy than you already are. And so it's a losing game. In fact, perfection is the lowest standard we can ever set for our life because it guarantees pain. There is no way to win with perfection, ever. So that person, I look at, okay, what's driving them? They're likely craving certainty and they're likely craving significance, right? And there are multiple needs that drive a person. But if we ask the questions like, what is it costing us to value those things at the top of our list when we could be valuing love, growth, contribution, things like that at the top of our list, people start to see the pain it will cause them. And if we start to ask ourselves, what's a better way to meet that need? Like you can meet the need for certainty in a variety of ways. You can meet it from exercising. You can meet it from being goofy with your kids. There's so many ways. You could meet it by watching Jurassic Park because you've already seen it and you know it's good, right? Like there's so many ways to meet the need for certainty. But if that is you and you're living in perfection or people pleasing or craving validation, it's going to feel like no matter what you do, you're losing until you work on the subconscious blocks that are causing perfection and people pleasing. Because it'd be very easy for me to just say, well, it doesn't matter what they think. That's what a run-of-the-mill mindset coach will teach. Doesn't matter what they think. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine, right? Don't worry about that. But that doesn't solve anything. We need to look at what the root is. Well, you're not a perfectionist, right? Don't focus on perfection. Just progress over perfection, right? Like that type of stuff you'll see pop up all the time. But what's the cause? What's the root? And so a question you can ask yourself is, what is this action giving me? How is this action making me feel more comfortable? How might this action be making me feel safe? What is this action or lack of action allowing me to avoid? And you'll get a glimpse into some of the ways that it's blocking you. Another place to take a look at is your emotional home, right? So you'll notice that very successful people are not down for long at all, right? So during this period of time when it all kind of went sideways in a matter of 2 weeks, I felt it, but it was like 15 minutes and then I was back to solving.
Wow.
Right? I felt it and then I just moved forward, right? So what most people don't recognize is that your dreams, and this is kind of getting a little bit meta, a little bit woo-woo, whatever. Your dreams are vibing at a certain level, right? Probably a 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10 level. Well, and you would agree that like attracts like, right? You are attracted to similar vibrations. Well, if your dream's a 9 out of 10 and you're living in anxiety and stress, that's a completely different vibration, right? And so most people don't recognize that the emotions they live in consistently are literally repelling what they want most. They think, once I achieve this, then I'll feel different. But what's preventing you from feeling happy now? Nothing. What's preventing you from feeling freedom now? Nothing. Nothing is stopping you from feeling those things. So most people don't realize that they have an emotional home they go back to. Even if your house is messy, it's still home. But most people don't recognize they can renovate it. So here's a metaphor that really helps people see where they're at with this. I want you to ask yourself, first, what's your favorite flavor of suffering, right? Everyone has a favorite flavor. It might be anxiety, overwhelm, depression, sadness. It doesn't matter what it is. Most people think that they are thermometers for their environment, right? Because especially growing a business, it is up and down. Especially, here's one thing I can guarantee you will happen. Along the path of business, there will be really amazing months and really crappy months. And that's going to happen, period. Full stop. It's going to happen. Now, if someone believes that they're an emotional thermometer, when they have a slower revenue month, their hands go up. They're like, maybe this isn't for me. I'm going to give up, throw in the towel. I'm done. This is terrible. I'm a bad entrepreneur. I'm a bad leader. I can't do this. When you recognize it's just par for the course, it's literally what you signed up for, then we can change the behavior and therefore impact the outcome, right? So whatever you are currently resisting in your life is the thing you are giving your power away to. And when you give your power away to something, you no longer have the power to change that thing. That's what attachment does. So if your business and where it is right now, you're giving your power to that, saying, if my business changes, that's what's going to make me happy, that's you giving your power away, then you have no power to grow your business. You're leaving it up to the outcome, right? The effect. All of life is cause and effect. And if you obsess over the effect, which is the size of the business, the revenue, whatever it is, you forget the cause, which is your emotional state and your belief systems and what's going on subconsciously. And if you forget the cause, you can no longer influence the effect. So most people think that they're thermometers for what's going on in life. So you'll see people up and down emotional chaos. But people that are very successful, you'll notice they might have a little dip, but they'll be pretty steady throughout it. Why? It's because successful people recognize that they are an emotional thermostat, just like everybody else. And so let's say that we have 0 to 100 degrees. 0 is like a deep, dark depression. 100 is unconditional love and deep appreciation, right? The highest vibes of all. Your favorite flavor of suffering, whatever that is, let's say it's 65 degrees, overwhelm and anxiety, right? Well, that's not matched up with what you want most. And so what do most people do? They'll write in a gratitude journal for 5 minutes, just like every mindset coach will tell them to do. And so they feel grateful for 3 minutes and then pissed off and frustrated for 23 hours and 57 minutes. So their consistently dominant vibration is pissed off and frustrated. And so let's say you're 65 degrees and something really tough happens and you drop down to 20 degrees. You'll live there for a little bit. You'll feel it for a little bit, but you'll find that you will always rise back up because the furnace will kick on, but only back to 65 degrees, only to overwhelm and anxiety. But the opposite is also true. If you're crushing it, your business is growing, it's thriving, everything's going well, it's 95 degrees outside, the AC kicks on because it can't be that good. And it drops it right back down to 65 to what you know, to what you have practiced the most often and what you are certain you know how to handle. Because your brain is a survival mechanism. It looks for familiarity. And if anxiety and overwhelm are familiar to you, they feel safer than happiness. Isn't that crazy? Like they feel safer than happiness. So what we need to do is go to work on elevating that emotional home. And there's tools, strategies, all that stuff to do that. But those would be some of the places that I would look. What needs are driving us? Where's our emotional state? And what beliefs are going on behind the scenes? You change all those, you have a different life very, very quickly.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I feel like this is something that it's really funny how you don't even realize like the hot coming down to the cold. I think it's really easy for people to understand that, oh, well, if I'm living at a certain place that when things are bad, I can recover.
Mhm.
But they're not necessarily realizing that, oh, but recover to what point, right? Recover to that 60 degrees? Is that
Yeah.
really where you want to be? Or do you want to be 95? And so I do think that that's something worth looking at because, again, we work with a lot of people who are doing objectively well on paper. Well, like the P&L looks pretty good compared to what some other peers are doing. And there is that emotional volatility where it's like a good month is, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing. I feel so good about myself." And then the challenging or quote unquote bad month is, "Oh my gosh, this isn't working. Everything sucks. Like what the heck?" So, and I say this from a place of like I am definitely not anywhere near as, be upset for 15 minutes like Brad is. I will aspire to get there ASAP. And it is something where like we've been through our own really challenging situations and I've talked about some of them on the podcast, but there are moments where I'm like, wow, I am really glad that I am able to recover in a reasonable period of time because if I wasn't, there's no way that the business would survive this kind of stuff. And so I do think especially this year where this year has been, and I know people are like, "Well, don't say it's harder because then you're attracting harder." I do think this year has been harder for people. Like I objectively for the average business owner, it is a more challenging year than let's say like 2022 was, right? And so if we are able to recognize that and not make it mean like, well, that means I suck because this year has been hard, that is something where I feel like getting to a place where you stop making meaning about those, like
Mhm.
you said, those dips, those like roller coaster experiences, because I feel like anytime you do make it mean something, it's like you're almost like pulling that thermostat down even further and leaving it there versus like elevating it and rising it and saying, okay, even if this is a more challenging year, it doesn't have to be more challenging for me. It doesn't have to be my story that that's what's going to happen just because a lot of other people are experiencing it.
Yeah, what's really beautiful is, I mean, I've been in this business for 7 years. I've been in business for 13 years. And I've seen a lot of trends and a lot of patterns. I could be, a total idiot at this stage and still see patterns in people, right? And I also have mentors, really amazing mentors that are close to me and really amazing mentors from afar that talk about cycles. And this has been a beautiful blessing in my life to zoom out. Whenever you are in a state of fear, panic, or worry, I want you to close your eyes, imagine your situation, and zoom out from it to 10,000 feet. And then make it black and white, like it's a black and white picture. Number one, you'll notice the emotional intensity gets a little bit lighter. This is an NLP technique, by the way. It's really awesome. But you'll zoom out, you'll notice it gets a little bit lighter. But what I mean in an example is that all of life is cycles and trends. And right now, yes, there is a lot of tough stuff going on, right? You see really bad things happening in the media getting publicized like all the time, and they're terrible things, horrible things that are happening. And there's also all the economic talks and tariffs and interest rates and all this stuff. And then there's the political, there's so much. And it's very accessible and very loud. And you'd think that you're on the brink of something really, really bad. But I learned a long time ago that after expansion comes recession, and after recession comes expansion. After day comes night, and after night comes day. And so in your life, if you zoom out and see all of this as a cycle that is normal, all of a sudden it doesn't carry as much weight. So here's a metaphor that I learned from one of my mentors years ago. Every single year, there are seasons, right? And I want you to think about the area of your life that you are currently experiencing the most pain in right now. And ask yourself which season you're in, and then ask yourself, as I'm going through this, which area of your life is going the best, and which season are you in? So every year, there's springtime. Spring is the time of opportunity. It's when you're planting seeds. It's when you go and you make the new relationship, start the new thing, the new product, the new offer, whatever it is, have the child, all the cool things. It's springtime. It's the new awakening, new beginning, possibilities. Flowers are blooming, right? Birds are chirping, right? And you have to make sure you plant in the spring or else you'll be begging in the fall, right? So spring is the time of planting, the time of opportunity, the new awakening. After spring always comes summer. Summer is when it's hot and it's long and you've been working so hard and you just want to harvest so bad, but the crops aren't ready yet. In fact, those crops are getting attacked by pests because, please write this down, all good will be attacked, always. And so it's your job to keep on nurturing the crops, watering and protecting them in the long, hot summers. And after summer, always comes fall. Fall is the time of harvest. It's time to reap, and you need to learn to reap in the fall without apology and without complaint. Meaning that if you reap your harvest in the fall and it's not what you thought, well, you planted in the spring, you protected in the summer, or you didn't, right? And without apology, meaning if you're crushing it, awesome, own it, that's great. But here's what I think a lot of people miss. They think the good times are always going to be good. And this is one of the things that helped me the most when everything went south at the beginning of last year. After fall isn't spring. After fall is always winter. And here's a promise for you. Some winters are long, some winters are short, but winter will always come. And in that winter time, you see some people that stay cooped up. They hide in the cabin. They wait it out. Some people bundle up and go snowboarding. And once you go through that cold winter, some are colder than others. Once you go through that winter, guess what? Springtime's coming. Winter is the time of lesson, the time of reflection, the time of preparation. Because when springtime comes again, and it will come again, you'll be better prepared to plant the right seeds this time. And so you might be in a season in your business or life where it could be wintertime for you in some areas. It's normal. Societally speaking, We typically follow 80-year cycles where there's a really dark time at the end of those 80 years, followed by a really amazing time. About 80 years ago, World War II. About 80 years before that, Civil War, right? It all is cycles and trends. Check out the book, The Fourth Turning. And it measures this every 80 years, dating back to like, I think the 1400s or 1600s. Something extreme happens. And you can feel the tension building. And it sometimes gets darker before it gets lighter. And it's always darkest before the dawn. So yes, while it is heavy, we just need to recognize that it is a cycle. And in business, it's going to be the same way. Sometimes you're going to be just crushing it. And other times you're going to get your butt kicked. And that's part of business. But when we can zoom out and elevate above the problem and ask ourselves, what season are we in? Well, each season has a different problem that we need to solve. In spring, we need to grind. In summer, we need to make sure we're solid. In fall, we need to harvest and take in and reap the rewards. And in winter, we need to reflect and learn. All of them have a problem that we need to solve. And if you can be smart enough to elevate above the problem and look at the season in whatever season you're in, then you'll know what's coming next. And then you're better equipped to handle it. So I'd go on for hours about that, but I'll tune it back to you.
Well, I feel like my brain is melting now, Brad. That is that I feel like I'm really impressed by the level of philosophical depth that you're bringing this time around. Not that you weren't impressive last time, but I feel like there's an extra level of depth and maturity and all of that that I'm hearing, and I'm guessing a lot of that is from the challenges that you faced over the last 2 years, where you have a lot more a deeper well to pull from, as they say. So all of that to say, as I'm sure I know I could get Brad talking for another 5 hours. I'm not going to do that. We're not Joe Rogan here. I would love for you to share a little bit about your Success Accelerator coming up. I think I forget the exact date that we're publishing this, but it should be in the next couple weeks that all of that is kicking in. So you want to share with our audience about how they can get more of this if they're like, oh my gosh, Brad, this is amazing. I want more.
Absolutely. So a lot of what we talked about today is inspirational and it gets you thinking, gets your wheels turning. The unfortunate part, and I faced this when I did podcasts years ago, I faced a problem that I would have a bunch of people that were inspired, but then there was nothing, they couldn't like do anything with it, right? And so I made a promise that no matter what insights I bring to people, we will make them tactical based on their own life, not just some fluffy theory like we talked about at the beginning, most of the mindset stuff on the internet. And so I started to recognize that pattern and I was like, I need to be able to give people an experience to where they can take these insights and actually have a breakthrough, actually experience what does this mean for their own life? And so I put together a 5-day challenge to do exactly that. So if you have related to anything we talked about today, whether it's the validation stuff or the perfection stuff or people pleasing or the tough times in your business or the emotional home or whatever it is, and there's so many other things that we didn't even talk about. If you can relate to any of that and you're like, there's something to this that I need to figure out about myself, that I need to reach in and unlock my full potential so I can actually break those chains of mediocrity in any way. Or if you're that person that's already achieving, but you're just not fulfilled. You might be in a spot where, let's say you're going after big goals and big dreams, and no matter what you do, it never feels like enough. You might be in a place where you know exactly what to do, but you can't get yourself to stay consistent, and you're in that perfection, in that procrastination. You might be in a space where you're like, I know my life needs to change. I just don't know where to get started. No matter where you are at, this program has helped 75,000 people from all over the world, and we will give you a literal recipe for how to rewire your mind for success. By the end of these 5 days, you will have the 5 puzzle pieces that are needed to actually have your own breakthrough. We see people healing marriages, creating within a couple of months, creating 6-figure businesses, leaving the challenge. We see people forgiving their parents. We see people going and all of a sudden they'll have a $7,000 client sign up. There's literally hundreds of testimonials over and over and over again about magic that happens. And so if you wanted to know how do these high performers achieve their goals so much faster than all their peers with less stress, this is going to show you how to do it. We're going to go through identifying what you really want, not what you're conditioned to want, what your heart actually wants in every area of your life. We're going to help you identify what are the greatest limiting beliefs and toxic thought patterns and limiting emotional patterns that are holding you back from getting there. And then the rest of the week, we're going to go to work on breaking through those. And so highly recommend you sign up. It starts on Monday, October 20th. Laura's got the link for you to enroll, but it's going to be a game-changing program. You're going to love it, and I can't wait to see you there.
And at the risk of being incorrect, this is all free.
Oh, yes, free. We do it once a year, one time a year, and it is my favorite program by far. Yeah, it's free.
I wanted to make sure people knew about that because the way you were describing it sounds like a paid program.
It should
So
be, in all honesty, it should be, but it's made such a big impact that I just want to keep it going like this.
yeah, I love it. Well, we will put the link to that in the show notes. So be sure to check that out and put some space on your calendar for that because this is something that I think everybody needs. Like you said, it doesn't really matter what level you're at. It's not like you get to, well, I'm at 10K months, so now I don't need mindset anymore. Or now I'm making 50K months, so I'm good with my mindset. Like it's literally every single phase. And as Brad explained, the problems just get bigger as you get more successful. So you need it all the time. Well, Brad, thank you so much for your just openness and honesty about some of the stuff you've been through and how this work has made such a big difference in your life. And I know that our listeners are going to be more than inspired to actually make some changes to how they're approaching things because I honestly don't think you have a choice anymore. I feel like you might have been able to kind of skirt through 2021, 2022 with like just some positivity on your face, but I really think this year, next year, moving forward, at least for the next few years, you need to have this as a skill set to be successful or even I honestly think to survive in online business at this point. And it is something where I know myself included, there's always more to learn. So I really, really appreciate it, Brad.
Thank you so much for having me, my friend. We're very grateful to be here.
Of course. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you guys here next week on the Nourished CEO podcast. Take care, everybody. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of the Nourished CEO podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation and it brought you value, I would be so grateful if you would take a minute to leave a review over on iTunes. Your feedback not only helps more amazing coaches and practitioners like you find the show, it also helps me keep creating the kind of content that you want more of. Just head over to Apple Podcasts, search for the Nourished CEO podcast, scroll down and tap that write a review button. It only takes a minute and it means the world to me. Thanks again for being here, and I'll catch you on the next episode.